What is that like when you see other departments using DNA in solving cold cases?
That's not fair. That's the first thing I think is not fair. I mean, I'm happy for these families who are getting that closure. But deep down, I'm kind of jealous.
Are you frustrated?
Very, very frustrated.
What would it mean if they could finally solve this case?
I'd be relieved. Relieved knowing that somebody is paying for what they took from us.
It's an unthinkable paradox. Rest and horror entwined eerily in the heart of a home. Today we tread the daunting path that leads to the resolution of a chilling cold case, which for 31 years held captive the truth in its icy clutches. In the peaceful slumber of her family home in Kansas City, Missouri, 16-year-old Fawn Cox was brutally robbed of her life, her room upstairs transformed into a gruesome crime scene, while her oblivious family slumbered below. Fawn's story is a chilling testament to the evil manifesting in the most of unexpected places. Betrayed even beyond her death, this beloved teenager's story is as haunting as it is heartrending. The investigators were baffled. The evidence suggested a burglary gone horrifically wrong, but the sheer savagery of the crime strained logic, suggesting something far sinister and personal. And personal it was. As the truth finally broke free from its chilling 31-year-long confinement, it shot shockwaves through the heart of her family. Today, we take you on a nerve-jangling journey down memory lane, shining a light on Fawn's unspeakable ordeal and the shocking identity of her betrayer. How could a loved one turn out to be a man of evil, and how did the law miss catching him? Welcome back to the chilling universe of solving crimes and mysteries. Join us and immerse in the eerie unfolding of this tale. If you're new here, consider subscribing to join us and never miss a chilling case. Born in 1973, Fawn Marie Cox was lovingly nurtured by her parents, John and Beverly Cox. They lived in Kansas City. This quaint neighborhood buzzed with a sense of community spirit where everyone was familiar with everyone else. As the eldest sibling among 3 girls, Fawn had an advanced maturity streak. She took care of her younger sisters, Amber and Felisa, like a guardian angel, especially Amber, who was just a year younger. Despite the slender gap in their ages, Fawn's protective instincts shone brightly. Fawn was a charming, jovial spirit, loved by her pals and the community. Her constant shadow and closest friend was Donna McGee from across the street. They loved spending time with Amanda Gardner, Donna's cousin. Fawn was a social butterfly and was actively involved in the Sheffield Assembly of God Church. The kindest of souls always remembered her, including Monty Clark, a church bus driver who would later dedicate 2 decades to seeking justice for Fawn. Catching many an eye due to her attractive personality and looks, Fawn won the admiration of many boys. One among them, a young man from her church, had a particular affection for her that was hard to miss. Fawn, a camp-loving junior at Northeast High School, cherished her time out in the great outdoors with her grandparents. She was also an enthusiastic roller skater, a popular pastime in the 70s and 80s, often accompanied by her sisters. Additionally, she was in a serious relationship, though her boyfriend's identity remains undisclosed in official documents. The Cox family, while not impoverished, routinely faced financial struggles. Their neighborhood was under the shadow of a notorious gang known as the 9th Street Dogs, notorious for engaging in several criminal activities, notably burglaries and thefts. Nonetheless, the Cox household, though small, exuded a feeling of comfort and warmth. Their 2-story home was modestly sectioned, with the parents, John and Beverly, transforming the dining room into a downstairs bedroom. The upstairs contained the daughters' rooms, Fawn's, across the hall from the room her siblings Amber and Felisa shared. The house had 2 bathrooms, yet the one in Fawn's room upstairs was the one predominantly used by everyone in the family. Though they had a basement, it was rarely accessed. John's conspicuous orange dumpster truck was frequently parked in the alleyway behind their house, right under Amber and Felisa's room. In an unforgettable childhood episode, the family found themselves inadvertently locked out. Amber, known for her adventurous and tomboyish spirit, cleverly scaled the wall to Fawn's window and successfully gained entry into the house. This event reinforced an unspoken house rule. The windows, especially during summer, were seldom locked or closed as a way to welcome the cool breeze and as an alternative entry during emergencies. 16-year-old Fawn was no stranger to hard work. She had a job as a cashier at a popular local attraction, the Kansas City amusement park, Worlds of Fun. Always eager to contribute to the family's finances, Fawn diligently put in long hours, particularly during the peak summer season. Amber, her younger sister, also chipped in, acting as a babysitter. On July 25th, while Amber was busy babysitting, Fawn was working a notably long shift at the amusement park. As the day ended and a worn-out Fawn was picked up by Felisa and their mother Beverly at around 11 p.m., she headed directly to bed. The duty of work was calling her again in the morning, and she needed all the rest she could get. In the Cox residence, age had crept into its corners, giving a sense of homeliness but also an undeniable need for repairs. Among the telltale signs of this was Fawn's bedroom door lock, which had long since ceased functioning. Being resourceful, she improvised a solution using a steak knife, which she cleverly used to secure her room. As the summer nights grew unbearably hot, Felisa had taken to sleeping on a comfortable couch in her parents' room. Why? Because that's where the only functioning air conditioning unit was located. Cast your mind back to the golden era of the 80s. Not all convenient home amenities were as sleek and quiet as they are today. The Cox's clunky air conditioner, mounted high in the window just above the comfy bed, was no exception. It hummed, creaked, and churned out cool air with the mechanical grace of a large vintage fan, often muffling both the bustle of the street and any sounds within their snug home. On that fateful night, between the quiet early hours of 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., their little poodle's rest was disturbed. The usually peaceful pet broke into a meek whimpering and an insistent barking, rousing Felisa from her sleep. She rose, tucked away her grogginess, and spoke soothing words to calm the frightened creature. But that was the boundary of the disturbance that night. The world rumbled onward, undisturbed from there. John Cox, the head of the household, headed upstairs to use the second-floor bathroom, right next to where his hard-working daughter was catching her much-deserved rest. In this interconnected bathroom, both Fawn and her younger sister have access. So occasionally, John stumbles upon Fawn in her sleeping attire, usually a nightshirt and underwear. That morning, John noticed there was no underwear. So quickly, he covered her up and carried on with his morning. Unusually, around 10 a.m., Fawn's alarm clock, notorious for its pestering ring, refused to silence itself. No matter how incessant the ringing, Fawn remained oblivious. It was very unlike her. Fawn was not a deep sleeper. Beverly Cox, sensing an unspoken dread, asked Felisa to check up on her sister. Felisa, the sound of her voice laced with worry, energetically tried to rouse her sister, shouting, "Hey, wake up!" Their eyes would never unsee the scene that followed, a memory forever burned into their minds. Fawn was sprawled there, lifeless, her body rigid and unnaturally tinged a chilling blue. She had been choked with a gown, and it seemed she had been in this tragic state for quite some time. Beverly Cox, choked with fear and dread, summoned help immediately, dialing 911. With the arrival of an ambulance, Beverly couldn't shake off an initial suspicion that perhaps Fawn had induced this horror onto herself. By the time Amber reached the scene, the once peaceful house was crowded with police and investigators, their faces marked with grim determination. Further examinations would later reveal an even darker truth. Fawn had been strangled, to start with, and then sexually assaulted. It was a brutal and horrifying end, one that would forever mark an abyss in their lives. In a shocking twist, all signs indicated that what had unfolded was likely a botched burglary. Investigators found a heap of blankets had been pulled from the bedroom closet. In the yard below the second-story window, a stereo and a Nintendo gaming console were found discarded, as though the felon had made a hasty retreat, inadvertently abandoning these items. The perpetrators, it seemed, had infiltrated the house through the bedroom window of Amber and Felisa. It's thought they had scaled an orange dumpster truck parked nearby to gain entry. The timing was crucial. It was around 11 p.m., with John Cox sound asleep, and at the time, Beverly was out collecting Fawn. John had a reputation for being a deep sleeper, able to snooze through all types of disturbance, making it entirely plausible the culprit hunkered down until Fawn had slipped into slumber. A steak knife was found at the crime scene, likely used to intimidate the young victim. The evidence suggested a possibility of multiple invaders, prompted by the fact that Fawn's bed was on wheels. Someone would have had to prevent it from moving during the ordeal. Shortly after, fingers pointed towards potential suspects, members of a local gang known as the 9th Street Dogs. In the era of 1989, the promise of advanced DNA technology was still a distant reality, leaving this cold case destined to spiral into an icy abyss. Days melted into weeks, then into months, and subsequently into the heartache of years. Despite the passage of time, her parents clung on to the pursuit of justice, pleading with the police to re-examine their daughter's case, their yearning for closure echoing painfully. Suspicions fell heavy on a local gang, especially since Fawn, the victim, had been romantically involved with one of its members. The devastating blow of Fawn's untimely passing motivated her youthful beau to enlist in the military. Tensions grew as Fawn's family anxiously accumulated funds to tap into the forthcoming DNA testing as soon as it surfaced. Leveraging the shockwaves the loss of their beloved minor sent through their community, they erected billboards calling on residents to provide any scrap of information they may have. The rallying cry for answers was deafening, inspiring everyone to leap into action. When the year 2000 rolled around, their efforts bore the fruit of $3,000 in reward money, dangling the tantalizing promise of monetary gain in the hopes of tempting the criminal out of the shadows. With a glimmer of hope, DNA samples derived from the evidence body were loaded onto a comprehensive DNA index. Yet the closure they yearned for eluded them, as the results yielded no match. Amber became the digital detective for her family, combing the internet's depths to monitor discussions about the case. Whenever she stumbled upon a mention of Fawn's tragic story on any true crime page, she'd express her gratitude and then gently prompt the poster to share their real identity if their information could potentially lead to a breakthrough in the case. Fast forward to 2018, almost 3 decades later. A fresh-faced Kansas City Police Department cold case team stepped into the scene, bringing renewed hope for the Cox family. The advancement in the field of genetic genealogy in recent years had solved countless cold cases from the 70s and 80s, including the infamous case of the Golden State Killer. During the summer of 2020, the city embraced Operation Legend, bolstered by federal resources and cutting-edge DNA technology. This allowed the KCPD to match the elusive suspect's DNA profile with extensive national databases, construct a genetic family tree, and significantly narrow down the potential culprits. The unsolved mystery seemed to be winding to a close as the DNA evidence uploaded matched the DNA on record. But things weren't as simple. The murderer had to be in those records, which meant they had to have been prosecuted for a felony or had prior engagements with the police that put their DNA on the public record. When the KCPD reached a stalemate, unable to reopen Fawn's case, the FBI stepped in, financing the DNA tests in 2020. All those years later, with bated breath, the Cox family watched as the fluids from Fawn's body got sent for testing, their hopes for justice rekindled. Things seemed to finally be aligning. Justice for Fawn appeared to be within reach. Within weeks, the verdict was out. On November 11, 2020, a full 31 years after the horrific incident, KCPD made the shattering announcement. They'd identified Fawn Marie Cox's murderer. The shocking revelation rocked the Cox family, the news hitting them like a freight train. Fawn's life was tragically snuffed out by her very own cousin, Donald Lee Cox Jr. As per Amber's account, a shadow always seemed to linger over Donald. Regrettably, his menacing ways extended to sexual abuse of the younger girls in the family, a secret kept under the rug due to fear and the passage of time. The family, sadly, would never get a chance to confront him in a court of law. Curiously, his DNA was already in the system, owing primarily to his untimely demise. In 2006, Donald Lee Cox Jr.'s life was cut short by a lethal drug overdose, with his blood revealing the grim tale during autopsy. To realize that someone so intimately known was capable of such an atrocity rocked the family members. Like an evil presence hidden in plain sight all these years, and at the time of Fawn's demise, he was just 21. legally an adult, committing such heinous acts against a young girl. The question remains if uncovering Fawn's killer has helped the Cox family find any closure, considering the perpetrator never faced judicial retribution. Perhaps karma had settled the score? Donald Cox Jr.'s past was marred by disturbing incidents, and there's a possibility that he may have carried out his terrible deed while under the influence of narcotics. Intriguingly, Fawn's 20-year-old neighbor, Tracy Snow, vanished from her household in 1984. A chilling thought, don't you think? Could Donald Cox Jr. have left a darker, more violent legacy? The answers might just leave you astounded. And with that, we close today's chilling account. Keep your antennas up for our next true crime rendezvous. Let us know your thoughts down below.